Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. And peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Corner Watt with the Great Millstone Charlotte camp, coming with another quick lesson to the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And this afternoon, I just wanted to touch on the topic of how the Lord, has a watchful eye over his elect, you know, whatever, circumstances you find yourself in, right, adverse or otherwise, the Lord is always, what's the word? Um, Intimately involved, right? He's guiding your steps, right? He's directing your path, you know, but he wants to see, right, how you respond, right, to these different adversities, man, right? So as we read this here in Psalm 139, right, it's, we understand that the Lord has, he's watching all these things, man, and he ultimately has control over all these things, right? Now, we'll start here, Psalm 139 and 1. It reads, to the chief musician, the Psalm of David, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my down sitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thoughts afar off, right? So he knows what we're thinking, right? He knows what, what we're considering, right? It reads, thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. So he knows what you need, what you want, right? But he's going to give you these things in due season, right? The issue comes where you try to take things into your own hands, right? And that's when the trouble starts, right? Because you're straying from the path, right? He's setting everything right in its correct order, for it to happen when it needs to happen, man. Right? That's why it says he's acquainted with our ways, right? It says, for there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thy hand upon me. Right. So he's guiding us, man. Right. He's that shining light in the darkness. Right. He's that light that's lighting the path of our footsteps. Right. He's set, like it says here in verse 5 in the NLT. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head, right? So he's directing us, right? And even going into Yahweh Shai, right? Yahweh Shai went before us, right? As the scriptures talk about him being the author and finisher of our faith. He went before us, right? And now he's guiding us. He's behind us, pushing us forward, man. Right? Guiding us through these paths that he's already traced, man. Right? Verse 6. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain unto it. Right? Now, when you read this in the Good News translation here, Psalm 139 and verse 6, it reads, your knowledge of me is too deep. It is beyond my understanding. Right? Because the Lord has knowledge of ourselves that we don't even know, man. Right? That's why it behooves us to just follow instruction. Right? Because he's setting us in a way that we don't even understand yet, man. Right? Right? Even going into, right, as we see Jacob's trouble, right, intensifying, right, we're reaching that time, right? The Lord is going to put us in positions that we won't understand, right, until we get to the kingdom, man. Right? Lord willing, we be a part of that number, right? The elect are going to have circumstances brought forth, right? Whether it's things we have to lose, whether it's things we have to do, right? The sacrifices that we even make now, right? The Lord he hasn't revealed all that understanding to us, man. Right? It can be too deep, right? It says, going back to the King James, um, whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there, right? So there's no running away from this thing now, right? Jonah tried that and he ended up right in the belly of a fish. You know, he was, trying to escape, trying to find a way out, right? But there is no way out, man. That's why even Jeremiah spoke how this word, was a fire to him, man. Right? It was a fire in his belly because we can't hold this in. Right? Eventually, it's gonna find its way out, man. If you're a teacher, if you're a prophet, right? This these words are gonna find their way out of you, man. You know. It says, and it's the spirit of the Lord ultimately. Going back to that point, right? It's the Lord, always being there, right? Always being, right, having that watchful eye over us, right? He's keeping His spirit on us, man. That's why we continue to pray, right? Going to let me grab this real quick. Psalm 55. Let me see here. I think it's 51. So yeah, Psalms 51. Mhm. It's Psalm 51 and 11. It reads, "Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me." Right. So the Lord is always in the presence of the elect, and we pray that we remain in His presence, man. Right. So as we're reading, how he's watching over everything, He's involved in everything. Right. This is exactly what we want. We want His presence to be felt. We want to have that access, right, exceedingly more during these times that we're about to face, man. Right. Going back, Psalm 139 and verse 9, it reads, "If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me." Right. So regardless of where we are, you know, the Lord is going to be guiding us, man. Right. Regardless of what circumstances we find ourselves in. That's why it's more important now than ever to be fortifying that relationship, because that fortification is allowing you protection, man. Right? We seek to be protected, in these times to come, right? Regardless of if we have to, like the scriptures talk about, be ye as pilgrims, right? If we have to get up and find ourselves traveling, who knows where, you know, like it says, even then, or even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me, and that right hand being who? Yahweh Shai, right? Yahweh Shai is going to be that right hand that's holding holding us in these times, man. That's taking and being that support, to keep us from falling, man. Right? It says, "If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day, and darkness and the light are both alike to thee." Right. So when you read this here in the NLT, or not in the Good News version, uh, the Good News Bible, it reads, "But even darkness," what's like verse 10, "I could ask the darkness to hide me, or the light around me to turn to night. But even darkness is not dark for you, and the night is as bright as the day. Darkness and light are the same to you." Right? So the Lord sees everything, man. Right? Even though, like it speaks here, right? "Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee." Even if we find ourselves in a state of, so-called despair, right? The Lord He's given us the faith, right, to trust in Him, man. Right? Where our flesh gets weak, right? That's where the Spirit picks up the slack, man. And truly, the Spirit is carrying us at this time, man. Because these bodies are, weak vessels, man. You know. But going back, "For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb." Right. So the Lord has always been there for the elect, right? Jeremiah, I think it's first chapter, right? I'll finish this out before I grab that. It reads, "For thou hast possessed my reins, and hast covered me from in my mother's womb. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well." Right. Actually, let's get this here in See, it says in the womb, right? Because it's like here. I think it's in Sirach, first chapter. Because the Lord created the elect, right? And that faith, that spirit was put in us from the very beginning, man. Right? Yep. This is Sirach 1 and 14. To fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and it was created with the faithful in the womb. Right? So as we read here, it says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that thy it's like and that my soul knoweth right well. Right. So from the time that we were conceived, right? The Lord had His Spirit on us, man. Right? The Lord was involved in every aspect of our lives, right? Verse 15: My substance was not hid from Thee when I was made in secret, right? Going to that consummation between our parents, and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect, and in the book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned when as yet there was none of them. Right. So, like it read, that faith was put in us from the beginning, man. Right. Lord, why don't we be of that elect number, man? Right. And you can see, right, the Lord is watching over us, man. Right. The elect are gonna be kept in these times. Right. We just pray to be a part of that. We know who's gonna be protected, right? Being the elect. But we just pray that we're a part of those who are gonna receive that protection in these times to come, man. It reads Jeremiah 1 and 5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. Right. So as the Lord created us in the womb, right, He sanctified us. Right. It says, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Right. So this was a heavenly appointment, right, that took place, as we were becoming being brought into this physical realm. Right. The Lord took our spirits, right? And He put them in these bodies, and or appointed us that office, man. Right, as the prophets, as the believers, man. Right, going back, Psalm 139 and verse 15. My substance was not hid from Thee when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect, and in Thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O Most High, Yahweh Shem Shai. How great is the sum of them, right? So, the Lord has thoughts of good and not of evil, right, toward the elect, man, right? He's, like the scriptures tell you, it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, man, right? That's what it said. How precious also are thy thoughts. This is only beneficial to us, man. Right? Everything we face, though it may be grievous, right? You read in Hebrews 12 chapter, right? Going into the chastisement of the Father, right? So let's just get it. I don't want to quote it. Just going to the point that the Lord has He's keeping an eye on the elect, man, right? A watchful eye, right? Because he's intimately involved in all our goings, man. You know, this is Hebrews. Let's see. Oh, I think it might be. Uh, yep, here we go. Um, yep, here we go. Hebrews 12 and 11. Now, no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Right. So the Lord is exercising us, right, through this chastening, man. Right. So we wouldn't have it any other way. It may not feel good in the moment, but we know it's like I said, it yields that peaceable fruit of righteousness, man. You know, it yields those changes, right? It ultimately yields the continuation of the building of that relationship, man. Right? As you go through these trials, as you overcome, right? Overcome all these tests, it builds your faith, man. It strengthens your resolve, right? You're being fortified in the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man. Right? So going back here, Psalm 139. This is Psalm 139. Oh, it's lucky. And verse 18, it reads, if I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with thee. And going into the mind of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? Right? The ideas, the precious thoughts that he has towards us. You know, that's why brothers go into the fact that when we get to the kingdom, it's going to be continual, blessings, man. Right? Never ending joy. New things being brought unto us, new revelations on a daily basis, man. Right? It reads, surely thou wilt slay the wicked. Oh, how about Shemal Shai? Depart from me, therefore, ye bloody men. Right. So this is, going into the fact that, we're seeking the Lord to destroy these men. Right. And he knows this, man. Right. That's why the scriptures tell you it's a blessing for a man to see the downfall of his enemies, because we're continually asking for this, and the Lord knows that we're asking for this, man. Right? It reads, for they speak against thee wickedly, and thine enemies take thy name in vain. What we see with the WEF, the WHO, Yuval Noah Harari, and all his cronies and lackeys, Klaus Schwab, and all these elites, right? So called, right? They speak against them the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man. Right? Like it says, they blaspheme you, your enemies misuse your name, right? They take the name of the Lord in vain. They try to replace him with themselves, man. Put themselves as the Most High. So that's why it says here, "Do I not hate them, O Lord, that hate thee?" You know, and I am not am I not grieved with those that rise up against thee? Because this is a grievous thing to see, man. Knowing that we have no physical power to stop this, but having the patience and the faith of the saints, right? That Yahweh Bashem Shai is going to vindicate his men, right? Vindicate his chosen, you know. Even though, like it says, it's grievous, man, right? Where we see these men excelling in wickedness, right? And we just have to wait and continue to prophesy, man, right? Just watching and waiting and praying, but the Lord knows all these things, man, right? It says, I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them mine enemies. Search me, right? So before I get to that, right? This is the the mindset of the elect, man, is to hate that which the Lord hates, man, right? With a perfect hatred. We know who our enemies are, right? We know what their intentions are, with the children of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man, right? With all you Israelites, right, are in the crosshairs of this wicked man, right? Of Esau eating this devil, man, right? So why would we not hate him, right? That hates us, right? That hates Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, you know? And the, the best form of hatred, right? Our strongest power is to continue to prophesy the downfall of this man's kingdom and present his judgment to his face, man. Right? Verse 23. Search me, O Yahweh Bashem Shai, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, right? So, the Lord is, the King David in this psalm is asking the Lord to test his faith, man, right? To test his strength, to test his resolve, his integrity, you know? And it's the spirit that we're in as well, right? Because we know that the times we're coming into, it's going to be tested, man. So we want to be, built up, to pass these tests, right? Um, and see if there be any wicked way in me and lead me in the way everlasting, So the spirit of, you know, cutting off anything you can, right, that could be a hindrance to you in this ministry, right? That like I said, point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life, right? So whatever is called for us to get to that next step, man, from glory to glory, you know, this is what we're willing to do, right? Whether it be losing jobs, whether it be losing friends or family, all these things are, temporal, right? We're thinking about the everlasting, right? That's why we're continuing down that path of everlasting life, man, right? And it started with Yahweh Shai. Let me get this here, and then we'll close up. Because the point being that you know the Lord has got a watchful eye on His elect, right? He's every step we take, right? Every decision we find ourselves making, right? It's all guided by the hand of Yahweh Shai, Shai, man. You know, because everybody is facing these same things, but the Lord is has a careful eye on His chosen, right? And this is let's see, John 17 and verse 9. It reads, "I pray not for them. Sorry, I pray for them. I pray not for the world, but for them which Thou hast given me, for they are Thine." Right. So those, as we read in that Psalm 139, that's those who have been given to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man. Right. Are given to Yahweh Shai. It says, "And all mine are thine, and thine are mine, and I am glorified in them." So the Lord is going to receive glory, right, as a result. You know, this is going to be the most magnificent thing the earth has ever seen, right? Is the salvation of the elect, man, right? And it's going to be all that glory and honor is going to be given, right, unto Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And then we're gonna share, Lord willing, partake in that glory, man. Right? As you read in Romans 8th chapter, you know, it says, "While I was with them in the world, I kept them in Thy name; those that Thou gavest me, I have kept; but none of them is lost, but the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled." Right? So we're being kept, right? That watchful eye. Let's see what that word kept. Uh, actually, let me start here. Okay, it's a lot. Um, let's see what the word kept here. It says here. So kept is Terrell Strong's G 5083. To attend to carefully, take care of, to guard, metaphorically to keep in the state in which he is, to observe, to reserve. Right? So this is what the Lord is doing. He's reserving us, right, from this judgment. Right? He's keeping us, he's guarding us, right? He's attending to carefully. He has that watchful eye, right, over his elect, you know? So he's ordering all our steps, right, to get us to where we need to be, man, in order to receive salvation. It's on us to just to continue in that, man, right? Continue to pray, going back to that Psalm 51, right, that we maintain the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai in these days, man, right? But, that's the point. I don't want to drag it on. Lord willing, us edifying lesson to the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Uh, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, Bashem Kakardash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. And peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. And Kwame Asharala and the Bible Ball. Shalom.